There it is, with the grin to boot. When you talk about getting up on that debate stage, it's one of those things that might look like people talking or arguing or going back and forth. And if you just pick a moment here or there, you might think how you could do it better. If you actually get up there and face the withering scrutiny and stand under the lights and feel everybody's reactions, it's a little bit different. We've heard that from people who prep for these things, the operatives and campaign chiefs who work with campaigns and candidates, and sometimes from the people at the very top, which is really only a handful each primary and only 2 each general, the people at the top who stand on that stage. And we begin our special coverage tonight with someone who's done exactly that, former Republican governor of Ohio, John Kasich. He ran for president and stood on the stage against Trump, and we have some of that coming up in a minute. But first, welcome, and your thoughts looking at Joe Biden over the years you see there. Does experience help?
Well, there's no question, Ari, because when you get into this, it's a question of getting comfortable. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you become. You know, when you're standing there for the first time or the second time, you don't quite know where the camera is. What you don't want to do is you don't want to step on what you're saying by finishing. In this case, there won't be an audience, but you know, when you get applause, you don't want to step on your line, so you interrupt the applause. I mean, there's so many things, but it's basically, and you know this from television, you know this from sports, the more you can be yourself, the more you can relax, the more you can relax your body, your throat, your arms, the better you're going to do, because you begin to somewhat freewheel. And that's what experience gives you. It gives you the opportunity to become more comfortable, which is what is so important to project to the people that are watching any sort of debate or any type of presentation.
Yeah, that makes sense. We just looked at some classic Joe. We're going to look at some classic Kasich and Trump, because you guys did face off. We'll remind folks, let's take a look at 2016.
Come on, folks. We all know you can't pick them up and ship them back across the border. It's a silly argument. It's not an adult argument. It makes no sense.
All I can say is you're lucky in Ohio that you struck oil. That's for one thing.
We cannot elect somebody that doesn't know how to do the job. You got to pick somebody who has experience.
He was so nice. He was such a nice guy. And he said, oh, I'm never going to attack. But then his poll numbers tanked. That's why he's on the end. And he got nasty.
Donald Trump's hitting a nerve in this country. And for people that want to just tune him out, they're making a mistake. And false little things, sir, they really don't work when it comes to the truth. So the fact is, all I'm suggesting, we can't ship 11 million people out of this country. Children would be terrified, and it will not work.
Thank you.
Mr. Trump, you've had a good. Let me just
built an unbelievable company worth billions and billions of dollars. I don't have to hear from this man. Believe me, I don't have to hear from him.
Brings it all back. Primaries are different than the general, of course.
Won. You see, that proves it, Ari.
What
I
does it
should
prove?
have been elected. That looked pretty good.
You feel good about it. Well, let's be clear, and I say this respectfully. At that time, in that Republican primary, he got the better of the other candidates, including you, and we saw both of your strategies there. And sometimes it looked like you rhetorically were trying to say, hey, if you're considering him, if you're Trump curious, I could still be your guy. Right, which is a certain strategy. And other times, you went right at his credibility. In some ways, that's what Biden has to do tomorrow, right? This is a close race, possibly. We don't know yet. It's many months out. But if it's a close race in some of these swing states, it's because people are looking at both these guys, and they haven't all sided with Biden. So what did you learn from that that's relevant to what he says tomorrow?
Well, I think you have to do your own thing. I mean, you could take those clips and show something, but I went on that debate stage always trying to figure out what I wanted to achieve, what I wanted to communicate. For Joe Biden tomorrow, Ari, I mean, seriously, he's got to show people that what they say about him behind closed doors in the Situation Room, where he's handling the issues in Gaza, where he's dealing with Ukraine, when they say that he's really on top of things, that he's strong, he has to prove that in that debate tomorrow. He has to show people that he may be elderly, but that he's not fragile, that he's a senior statesman and not just an elderly old guy. That's what people wonder about. If he can achieve that, in my opinion, look at what happened.
Let me slow you down. I'm going to bring in. I got a bit of business to do. We got Margaret Carlson joining. The governor stays. So welcome, Margaret from the Washington Monthly.
Hello, Ari. Hello, Governor.
Welcome.
One of the great debaters of all time.
Yeah, and so the governor, I wanted to pin down the point you're making because they are both elderly. They're both above retirement age, or however you want to objectively put it. You, Governor, thought that Biden was the better choice last time, right?
Yes.
So I want to be clear. What you're discussing is from a view of someone who thinks Biden's better than Trump. You don't think it's all propaganda, that there are political, public perception questions about the age. How does he conquer that tomorrow?
You know, there was an article that said that he should take a page out of Betty White, who never got old, even though she aged. I mean, it's a matter of having a little bit of humor. It's about being sharp. It's about making your point. And, by the way, not taking the bait to be distracted by something that Donald Trump's going to say. Run your program, show people what you're all about. And one other thing, let people know that the economy wasn't so great under Donald Trump. Everybody says, oh, it was so much better. Then we'll tell the truth about that and about how Trump blocked the border reform that people want. Those are two big things. And finally, violent crime at a low. I mean, it's like, 30 years since we've had violent crime this low? Talk about those things, but don't take the bait. Don't take the bait.
Yeah, it's interesting coming from you. You mentioned Betty White. I think Joe Biden would say to you, Governor, thank you for being a friend. It's a Golden Girls reference, Margaret, because you're in Ohio and you were a long time, conservative, whatever they call it, centrist, reasonable conservative, depending on who you ask. And here you are making those arguments for Joe Biden. And it's interesting, Margaret, that Joe Biden does have friends like John Kasich, because in Ohio and in the Midwest and even parts of Michigan and Georgia, that's where the conversation is. It's not far right or far left. It's sort of more middle. Your thoughts on all the above, Margaret?
Yeah, it's very Ohio. It's very Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is where I'm from. And Ari, the news tonight is that you watched the Golden Girls. Really?
Loved
you know
it.
the theme?
Three's Company,
you know the
too.
Theme song?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So if Biden could take State of the Union Biden and mix it with Scranton Biden, he'd be about in the right space for the debate. It's so hard to be yourself in a debate after you've been grilled for a week and you have people sitting around the room criticizing you, and then you go on. I think that's very hard. Trump not practicing. Actually, Trump needs to practice being normal, but he's not hampered by a lot of facts in his head. Those can slow you down. Biden has the facts, and John, you're so right. He can bring up immigration and what he tried to do and what Republicans refused to do. He can bring up the economy. This guy over here, $8 trillion in debt he left us with. Look what I've done. And crime is way down, even though you know that Trump is going to fit in those immigrants who've committed crimes. That's what he's itching to do. But also, the other thing that Trump will do, we can check on this tomorrow, the next day. He's going to bound onto the stage and go over and give a big handshake because he's the more vigorous guy. He's from WrestleMania. And then I think, Biden knows how to respond to that. But Biden has to be briefed on the body language because Trump's body language is better than Biden's body language.
Interesting. What I want to do is keep you both. Margaret's joined. I have something I got to show you, which is Donald Trump reportedly conceding why he thinks he didn't do so well against Biden last time. Very different in private than in public. We're going to get into that when we're back in 90 seconds.
I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience.
Ronald Reagan scored that now classic line to basically charm away his age question. Reagan actually said that at the 1984 debate with Walter Mondale, a sign of how you can use those big debate moments to make some big political hay. Governor Kasich and Margaret Carlson are back with us. Welcome back. Margaret, there is this reporting that Trump believes that he actually could have done better last time. He knows in private that he lost the debate to Biden. He lost the election to Biden. It was an error when, the Bulwark reports, he says he had a kind of a meltdown during the first debate that they went too aggressive. And remember, something that kind of might have worked in the primary didn't work against Biden.
This little guy has lied so much. Such a nasty woman. We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does. Nasty guy. I never attacked him on his look, and believe me, there's plenty of subject matter right there. I've given my answer, Lion Ted. You defrauded the
challenged on a point.
Little Marco. We don't need a weak person being president of the United States, okay? Because that's what we'd get if it were you're the basket case. He doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. No puppet.
It's pretty clear.
You're the puppet. This guy's a choke artist, and this guy's a liar. You have a combination.
I'm not going to answer the question.
Why would you answer that question?
The question is,
the radical left. Will you shut up, man? Listen,
Margaret, the insult debate artist did run out of steam in 2020 to the point that it's now being discussed. Your view of that aspect tomorrow, which will be different, less interruptions, take turns, but during your own time, you can hurl those insults if you want. What do you think?
He's the Jackie Mason of debates, Trump. He just had hurled one right after another, and they had an element of truth to them, so they have that effect. But overall, Trump has no monitor. He doesn't know when he's going too far. So he's got a huge break this time. Many of those segments we just saw won't take place because his mic won't be on. He can't overtalk. He can't interrupt when Marco Rubio is trying to get back in and Trump's overstepping his bounds. It's just not going to happen. I think that's what made him lose the first debate. He overtalked. He interrupted. He just came off as an awful, awful bully. And now the debate monitors have taken that out of the equation.
Yeah, Governor, we have one more big piece here because, again, we don't usually see this. They only did it once. Tomorrow's the next time we'll see it. This is a last bit look at the 2020 debate.
I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
Mr. President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. Do you have any idea what this clown's doing? He is not for any help for people needing health care. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court.
Why is it in the ballot?
Because
why is it on the ballot? It's not on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the court.
I don't think so.
In the court. Well,
there's nothing happening there.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it. And I'm proud of him. I'll support the outcome. And I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to see an honest ballot cut.
Gentlemen, we're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it?
Governor?
Well, I thought that Biden there looked very good. I mean, he can be that strong again. I think that Margaret said it exactly right. I mean, it's a combination of Scranton Joe, and I love that, and what he did in the State of the Union. For Donald Trump, Trump needs to realize that what's critical to him, particularly in his battleground states, are those independent voters and those Republicans who are sort of on the fence. The insults may carry you with your base, but his problem is beyond the base. He needs to figure out how to get those suburban women interested, and insults don't work. So to me, he needs less bombast. He needs to appear more presidential. And Joe Biden has got to not take the bait and project in a very good way.
Yeah,
I hope Biden gets some good counselors because, frankly, the Biden administration has been too insular. They haven't listened to people on the outside, and I don't know who's talking to him. I hope that he heard a little divergence of opinion, reviewed the tape, and let's go and get it on, see what happens.
Yeah, all very interesting as we round out this conversation. You made a point earlier that I think resonated not only, Governor, perhaps with the Biden team, with myself, with Margaret Carlson, but with people around this great nation. And I want to say we've pulled the photos. You said to the basic effect that the Golden Girls could be, and Betty White could be the spirit animal for Joe Biden because they're wonderful, and Betty White is timeless. And so we have here.
She was 90 going on like 65 or 70.
And there she is.
That's the magic of aging.
Margaret, we're out over on time, but if you have a line or a haiku about Betty White, you can close us out.
I don't have it about Betty, but John Kasich, you're doing pretty well. You're like 60. That could be an insult, but I actually kind of know how old you are, so you're doing really well.
I'm going to send you roses for not having to reveal an age. And you know what? It is changing. That's the great thing about where we are today in the country. You don't have to be, sure. It's not about a number, it's about an attitude. And that's what Biden needs to know, and that's what Trump needs to know.
On that note, shout out Betty White. Our thanks to the governor and Margaret. I'll see you both soon. We'll check in after the debate.